Have you ever wondered what events led up to the historical Battle of Caloocan in 1899? Well, let's take a step back to 1898, a year that set the stage for this monumental confrontation. The United States, having aided the Filipino revolutionaries in their struggle against Spanish colonial rule, displayed an abrupt shift in policy. Instead of standing behind the Filipinos' quest for independence, the American government made a controversial decision. They decided to annex the Philippines, a move formalized in the Treaty of Paris of 1898. This decision sparked a wave of discontent and tension throughout the islands. The Filipino people, who had fought so valiantly against one colonial power, were now facing the prospect of another. And it wasn't just any power, but one that had initially presented itself as an ally. Antonio Luna, a commander of the Filipino defenders, found himself at the forefront of this unfolding drama. On the other side, Arthur MacArthur Jr., a prominent American military figure, was gearing up his forces for the imminent confrontation. The American strategy was clear: to gain control over the Manila-Dagupan Railroad and rolling stock, key strategic points in the heart of Caloocan. Meanwhile, Luna and his men were preparing for the onslaught. Their goal was not only to defend their land, but also to uphold the dignity and freedom they believed they deserved. Yet, they knew they were up against a formidable adversary. Just as the American forces were preparing to attack, the majority of Filipino forces managed to retreat, regroup, and brace themselves for the battle ahead. This tactical maneuver gave them a chance to reassess their strategy and fortify their defenses. In the midst of this tense atmosphere, the battle lines were drawn. The settlement of Caloocan, once a peaceful community, was now transformed into a battlefield. The stakes were high, the tension palpable, and the outcome uncertain. And so the stage was set for an intense clash between American forces and Filipino defenders. The Battle of Caloocan was about to begin, a battle that would leave an indelible mark in the annals of history. On February 10, 1899, the American forces, led by Arthur MacArthur Jr., made their move. They launched their attack on the settlement of Caloocan, a strategic point that held the key to the Manila-Dagupan Railroad and a substantial amount of rolling stock. The American strategy was carefully planned and its execution was precise. The troops advanced with a determination that was as relentless as the tropical sun overhead. On the other side of the battlefield, the Filipino defenders under the command of Antonio Luna were equally determined. Luna, a man known for his strategic brilliance and fiery spirit, had prepared his men for the inevitable clash. He had them entrenched in defensive positions, ready to counter the American assault. Luna's strategy was one of resistance and resilience. He knew that they were outnumbered, but he also knew the value of their cause and the power of their resolve. The battle that ensued was fierce. The American forces pushed forward, their guns blazing, their eyes fixed on their goal. They were met with an equally fierce resistance from the Filipino defenders who, despite being heavily outnumbered, fought with a courage that was both inspiring and heartbreaking. The American forces, however, had the upper hand. Their superior numbers and firepower eventually overwhelmed the Filipino defenders. After hours of relentless fighting, the American troops successfully captured the settlement of Caloocan. It was a victory, but one that came at a cost. The American casualties numbered 6 killed and 61 wounded. Arthur MacArthur Jr., standing amidst the smoke and the rubble, could not help but feel a sense of hollow triumph. Yes, they had won the battle. Yes, they had captured Caloocan. But at what cost? And to what end? The majority of the Filipino forces had managed to retreat and regroup elsewhere. The war was far from over. Despite their successful capture, the Battle of Caloocan did not have the decisive impact MacArthur had hoped for. In the aftermath of the battle, the American forces counted their losses. As the dust settled and the echoes of gunfire faded, a somber silence fell over the battlefield of Caloocan. The grim toll of war was evident in the faces of the American soldiers. 6 brave souls had given their lives in the pursuit of victory, while 61 others bore the painful scars of battle. These casualties, however, were not in vain. The capture of Caloocan was a significant strategic victory for the American forces. In the grand game of war, the terrain is as much a player as the soldiers themselves, and control over key locations can tip the balance in favor of one side. The prize of this particular battle was the Manila-Dagupan Railroad, and its rolling stock. This railroad was not just a means of transportation, it was a lifeline. It provided a crucial link between different territories, enabling swift movement of troops and supplies. The Americans now had this lifeline in their grasp, a significant advantage in the ongoing conflict. But war is not a game of absolutes. Victory in a single battle does not guarantee the end of the conflict. It's a complex dance, a series of pushes and pulls, advances and retreats. The American victory at Caloocan was a push, a significant one, yes, but not enough to end the war. The Filipino forces, though beaten, were not broken. Despite the loss of Caloocan, they were able to retreat, regroup, and prepare for the battles yet to come. The war was far from over, and they were ready to fight on. This resilience, this determination to continue the struggle despite setbacks, is a testament to the spirit of the Filipino fighters. They knew the odds were against them, yet they chose to fight, to resist, to endure. Theirs was a fight not just for territory, but for freedom, for self-determination, for the right to shape their own future. However, the majority of Filipino forces were able to retreat and regroup elsewhere. The Battle of Caloocan may have ended, but the war was far from over. The American forces had won a battle, but the fight for the Philippines continued. The Battle of Caloocan was not the decisive blow American commanders had anticipated. Indeed, the capture of Caloocan, despite giving American forces control over the Manila-Dagupan Railroad and rolling stock, did not bring the war to an abrupt end. The war was far from over. It continued for another 3 long years. The American government, bolstered by its victory, hoped that the Filipino forces would capitulate. But they underestimated the resolve of the Filipino defenders. The Filipino forces, led by Antonio Luna, displayed resilience and determination that could not be quashed by a single defeat. Even after losing Caloocan, they did not lose heart. They retreated, regrouped, and strategized, planning their next moves with precision and determination. They were not deterred by the might of the American forces, nor by the loss of their comrades in the Battle of Caloocan. The spirit of revolution, the desire for freedom, was still burning bright in their hearts. The American forces, on the other hand, had to face the reality that the war was not going to end as swiftly as they had hoped. Despite their superior weaponry and the capture of strategic locations, they had to grapple with a resistance that refused to give in, that kept bouncing back, that kept the war alive. The Battle of Caloocan was a victory, yes, but it was not the decisive, war-ending victory they had aimed for. And so, the war continued. The American and Filipino forces locked in a struggle that would last another 3 years, a struggle that was as much about freedom and self-determination as it was about military supremacy. The Battle of Caloocan, in retrospect, was a significant moment in this war. It was a testament to the American forces' strategic prowess and the Filipino forces' unyielding spirit. The Battle of Caloocan was a significant moment in the war, but it was not the end. As we look back on the Battle of Caloocan, we are reminded of the complexities of war. The events leading up to this pivotal conflict were steeped in a maelstrom of political ambition and a fervent desire for independence. The American forces, led by Arthur MacArthur Jr., were driven by their government's decision to annex the Philippines, a decision made in spite of the assistance provided to Filipino revolutionaries in their fight against Spanish colonial rule. The battle itself was a vivid illustration of the stark realities of war. On one side, we had the American forces armed with the latest weaponry and tactics of the time. On the other, the Filipino defenders, commanded by Antonio Luna, fought with a fierce determination to protect their homeland. The clash of these two forces resulted in a battle that was both brutal and profound. In the aftermath, the American troops successfully captured the settlement of Caloocan, gaining control over the Manila-Dagupan Railroad and rolling stock. But victory did not come without cost. 6 American soldiers lost their lives, while 61 were wounded. Yet the majority of Filipino forces managed to retreat and regroup. The battle did not yield the decisive blow that MacArthur had anticipated. The Battle of Caloocan was not just a single event in isolation, but a part of a larger, more complex war that would continue for another 3 years. The impact of this battle reverberated throughout the conflict, shaping the strategies and decisions of the leaders involved. As we reflect on the human cost of the Battle of Caloocan, we are reminded of the sacrifices made on both sides. The men who fought, whether American or Filipino, were not just soldiers but human beings, with dreams, ambitions, and loved ones waiting for them at home. Their sacrifices, their bravery, and their resilience are a testament to the indomitable spirit of humanity. In remembering the Battle of Caloocan, we honor the sacrifices made by all those who fought and pay tribute to the resilience of the human spirit.